The Albanese government is warning the coalition against holding up NDIS legislation, arguing that it will cost the budget billions of dollars. Joining me live at the desk here is the Shadow NDIS Minister, Trudi McIntosh. Great to see you.
You too.
Clear this up for us. Is the coalition seriously considering withholding support for the NDIS so it can't be in place by July 1? The government said that's crucial to lock in the savings.
Yeah, I've been very clear as the Shadow Minister for the NDIS and the portfolio holder that this has to be done right. I have no intention of holding this up. I think it's really important that we do have reform to the NDIS, but by no means is this a tick and a flick exercise for the coalition. The government can't just expect that we'll be going along with everything that they want, and that's why I pushed really hard for a Senate inquiry, and the government agreed to that, and I've been working with Mark Butler quite closely to ensure that that goes through, and that will be in a couple of weeks' time, and that will give Australians a chance to have their say on the NDIS and for us to scrutinise exactly the details. I want to see the modelling on some of these measures that the government wants.
What are some of the main concerns that are being raised with you with the changes to the NDIS?
I think it's the balance between wanting to reduce the growth when it comes to the financial growth, and everyone agrees. Australians, when they hear that's $50 billion now a year, everyone wants to bring that down. But on the other hand, you have to be compassionate towards those who are on the scheme, whether they were meant to be on the scheme or not. The scheme has grown over a long period of time and these people are reliant on it. So if they're in a cohort of people that need to come off the scheme onto something else, well, they can't fall through the cracks, and something has to be there to catch them at the other side. On that perspective, I'm concerned that it's a cost-shifting exercise, that the NDIS budget will purely be transferred across to the state budgets or to the health budget. So we need to really get into details of that. And on the other hand, people with severe disability, the scheme was set up for these people. They're very scared. There's high anxiety across our country right now when you're thinking possibly hundreds of thousands of people coming off the scheme.
You're pointing to there's a Senate inquiry that's going to be able to look at this. The government, though, says that July 1 deadline is important for getting some of these savings to start to occur. Can you see this in a position where the coalition won't support this before that date, or are you inclined to support it once you see the detail?
Well, it depends on the government as well. We had amendments through the House of Parliament last week, and one of my amendments was on fraud. There's not enough in this bill to tackle fraud, the rorting, the criminals, the crooks in the system. And we had all of the crossbench across voting on my amendment, One Nation and the One Green. So everyone's together on this particular issue. And the debate hasn't finished in the House. And as I can see for this week so far, the government hasn't put it back on the agenda. So it needs to go through the House of Representatives before it then goes to the Senate. It goes through the inquiry and it will be debated in the Senate. So we've got a bit of time, but as I said, if the government wants us to pass their legislation, then they're going to have to provide us with some more details, and we have to get through this inquiry process.
The Shadow Treasurer, Tim Wilson, a week or so ago left open the prospect that you could withhold support on the NDIS to try and force a back down on Labor's housing tax changes. You're responsible for this area. Are you seriously considering tying these two things together? They're very separate measures.
I would prefer we didn't, but the government is the one that has tied measures within the tax bill together. So we're supportive of some of that, so the $250 WATO, but we're not supportive of CGT and negative gearing changes. But the government is not splitting those. If they really cared about Australians, then they'll allow
at least they have
to go
kept
through
NDIS out of that omnibus.
Well,
it allows you, as the coalition, to support that aspect without it all being tied into one. I take your point on the tax side.
But they're trying to wedge us on that. So if they say, well, the coalition's not playing on the NDIS, and then they're wanting us to support the full tax bill, well, if we don't, then that's easy for them to say we don't support any of their measures, and they're just playing a game with us. So it's not just our side that is trying to negotiate on these. It's a very complex issue, but for me as a portfolio owner, I want to do the right thing by Australians. We need to be hearing them. They're pretty scared right now. I don't want it to come to a stage where people get pushed off the NDIS that should be on the NDIS. And I also didn't think it's fair for a lot of people, such as amputees, to have to go through a reassessment again. You're never going to grow your legs back. Yeah. Some of these disabilities, they're never going to be resolved. So why are we putting people through reassessment again? So there's a lot still to go through before we get to to the end of this.
Yeah, it's incredibly complicated and important policy to get right. I wanted to get to the raw politics of where we're at a few years out from a federal election. One Nation's planning to run seats all across the country, including in Western Sydney, seats like yours. Are you hearing from traditional Liberal voters that they are so turned off the major parties that they are going to vote for One Nation?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I've always had One Nation in my seat, and I have been hearing a lot from people on the ground about how they're feeling right now. And some people say to me they feel like they're losing our country and they want Australia back. And when you unpack it, you look at the reasons why they're feeling scared, and it all comes back to Labor's policy. So they really don't like immigration where it's at, and I surveyed my community to get a position quite some time ago. So now we have our immigration policy being put out there. They don't like what they're paying for energy. Well, I knew that. I fought really hard in my party room to make sure that we dropped net zero.
But that hasn't translated to increased support for the coalition. Far be it, it's gone in the opposite direction.
Yeah, some of that I think has been on our messaging, that we need to circle back and say, well, actually, we did land a position on net zero. Let's start getting that message.
Is that not being clear enough from MPs and the leader that you have shifted on that?
I think Angus is very supportive of dumping net zero and very supportive of us communicating that to the public. And when I've been out in the public, people have said to me, we really like you, but we don't like what's going on. You know, it's in politics, in your party, in everything. So it's all getting tied together. So I think when you start telling people, OK, we did drop net zero, we do have an immigration policy that's tied to housing because people in Western Sydney really struggle with housing. And even way back to us saying no to the voice, my electorate was really strong on that voice, and I had rallies in the community. So when you remind them, they go step back and go, OK, yeah, you are on the side of us. It's just the people do tend to see what's going on in the media as well. So I think first and foremost, you've got to be in your community, regardless. I've had fights against Labor over many years now. My seat's usually a seat of government. I've held it twice against the Titans, took it off Labor, so I'm used to a fight, and I'm up for a fight from anyone, really.
Can I ask you, were at the Liberal Federal Council in Melbourne this week, and Tony Abbott, the new party president, former PM, it's a pretty rare position for him to take that. Do you think he's the right man to help lead the fight against One Nation?
Yeah, well, Tony has been into Penrith, my electorate, many times, and the people of my community have a bit of a soft spot for him. When I took him through the local plaza last election, it was like a bit of a rock star. He was mobbed like a rock star.
Overshadowing Angus Taylor, maybe?
No, I don't think so. But the point I'm making is that people in places like mine, it's Tony's tradies, right? They are...
Should he run for Parliament, do you think?
Well, I'm pretty happy where he is. That's up to helping Angus. I think that's very key. I think they're going to make a good team. If he has an interest in go back into Parliament again, who knows?
Who knows? Melissa McIntosh, really appreciate you joining me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's get